Hello, today we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to show you a top 10 of my own games that I created myself. Now this might sound like a stupid idea because in the best case you think this is just advertisement and skip the video, and in the worst case you think that I'm full of myself and unsubscribe, but who cares, this is my channel and I want to do the video. And actually I think I have some interesting things to say about my games. Now, as a bit of context, I've been a game designer for more than 15 years now, but I'm also creating my very own games in my free time. Those are often a bit smaller games or retro-inspired games, but over the years they became more and more ambitious. I'm only going to talk about Steam releases in this video, even though I also released a few mobile games, and without further ado, let's start the video. So the first game I wanted to talk about is also the first game that I release, and well, you can tell. The bad reviews are well deserved. It was more of an experiment that has gone wrong, and I still had a lot to learn. The game is a mixture of dialogue puzzles and fetch quest, and then you have this more action orientated play mode during the night when you have to escape the monsters. The idea that I wanted to have all these different characters telling their Lovecraft-inspired tales, that you need to find out more about them and try to win their trust, and then you have a sanity mechanic where you lose your mind yourself and start seeing things, but actually you need to lose some sanity because otherwise some people will not talk to you. I think there are some interesting ideas in there, but at that point I was just not able to pull it off, and well, the presentation is god-awful. I'm probably not helped by the fact that I did all the voiceovers myself with this cringy, cartoonish German accent. So this is the only game on this list that I don't recommend to play unless you have a very strong fetish for weird and crude games that are not actually that much fun to play. Still, I love this one just as all my children games, but that's probably a personal thing, or maybe because of the game's rather unique atmosphere. The word Peace Simulator, also one of my earlier titles, definitely won't win any prizes for best looking games, but it's interesting and quite unique to play, I would say. Fundamentally, the game is a world conflict simulation where you can select one country and try to influence all the factors that go into the simulation to make your country survive the World War the longest and come out on top. You don't play your country directly like in a strategy game, instead you just influence the country's various states via politics and then observe how that plays out and how you can improve. So for example, you can invest your politic points in infrastructure, making the country more stable and wealthy, which will prevent the start of a civil war in the country. Or you can just throw a nuke on an enemy country and see how the world reacts to that. One playthrough is probably around 20 to 30 minutes, but you have a progression system where you can earn XP and spend that on a talent tree to make it easier for your next rounds. And then there are also a handful of scenarios that come with extra rules, for example a zombie attack where you not only have to worry about attacks from other countries but also keeping the plague at bay. So if you're into this kind of niche gameplay and you can look behind the dated graphics, then maybe give it a go. Party Host 85 is my love letter to EGA aesthetics and the humor from the 80s or early 90s. The game is a house party simulator where you have to throw the party, keep all the guests happy, make sure that the house does not get burnt down and that the police will not stay longer than necessary. Before each party you have to do preparation like buying food, drinks, drugs, picking out an outfit for the party and inviting all the guests. And during the party you run around, talk to everybody, try to get to know them better, to know what they are into, to increase your popularity and unlock new guests for the next party. You also have to make sure that you're not running out of drinks, drugs or food, turn down the music when the neighbors have complained, and extinguish any fire that threatens to burn down the house. If you do a good job, your party guests will tip you, and in the end you can buy a plane ticket with the money you have to different locations to unlock several endings. The game actually began its life as a murder mystery simulator, but after I've put more and more effort into simulating the party and didn't care much about the murder anymore, I decided to switch it over and make the party the focus of the game. Gameplay wise it becomes a bit repetitive after a while, I have to admit, but it's free so you don't really have to play hours at end to make it worth it, unless you're trying to solve the very elaborate ARG and mystery lore that's hidden deep within the game. Good luck with that, that's a real challenge. The idea for Brainbait was born when I finished a very long project at work and I really wanted to get into something simple. So I tasked myself to create a small little game within a single weekend like during a game jam, which actually turned out quite fun, so I decided to make a real game from it with 3 floors and 9 levels each, so a total of 27 challenging levels that become more difficult the further you get. The basic concept of the game is very simple. You have these zombies that are chasing you or that run away from you, and you have to kill them to progress to the next level. And then there are also various objects like levers and traps that you have to utilize to reach that goal. You don't have an attack, but you can dash through the zombies without taking damage, and you can move around crates or push levers. And if you really want to challenge yourself, there's a constant timer ticking up and you can collect these treasures which will decrease the timer, so it becomes more of a game of the optimal route through the level and the execution of that route. The times are stored in an online leaderboard on Steam where you can compete with other players. I'm quite happy how the game turned out, especially the level design I think is quite clever. Graphics wise I think it's competent enough, but I mostly used assets that I bought at a store and I did not draw those myself. If you like challenging retro style games and just want to have some simple fun, Brainbait might just be the game for you. Oh, and it can also be played with a controller, obviously. If you're looking for a very stress-free and relaxing business simulation game, Movie Tycoon Simulator might be right for you. As you might already suspect, in this game you're managing a few movie theaters and you can also make your own movies. The game is very casually designed, so you can't go bankrupt or make any major mistakes. It's more about growing your business, upgrading your movie theaters, getting new movies and taking care of advertisements. The pacing of the game is rather slow, but there's always something small to do and to optimize, so you get into this nice flow of managing the theaters and everything that comes with it. Later you can unlock more floors in the building, which will unlock additional gameplay systems like, for example, classic movies or marketing. And at the end of each year there's a reward ceremony for the best pictures and you might win those as well. The game spans the year from 1990 to 2017. and features all the major movies that had been released during this time, though with slightly altered names. The movies have actual correct box office numbers, so you can challenge yourself to beat those in the box office charts with your own movies. The idea for the game came to me when I remembered the game Hollywood Pictures from 1995 that I really liked to play, but that game was quite hard at the beginning, and then when you got some money it got boring really fast, and I tried to go for a bit of a different approach with the balancing here. So if you're just looking for a bit of a time waster and you like Hollywood movies, then this might be a good choice for you. Next we have Curse of the Old Gods, a classic point-and-click adventure in a Lovecraftian detective setting. Now the origin of the story for this game has been a round of pen and paper where we played a system that I designed myself based on a mixture of Lovecraftian themes and The Relic, if you still know maybe that movie or the book. And for that round I only created a story setup, and the rest of the story was completely improvised while we went along, and the story turned out to be so interesting that after we've completed the play I wanted to do something with it. So I took the story, condensed it down to one main character and the main plot points, and then started to create an adventure game from there. The game is using montages of stock photos because, well, I couldn't hand draw all the backgrounds and characters myself in a reasonable time frame, and I lacked the talent, so it would have not looked very well. So taking these images and blending them together by going with a lower color depth created the art style you can see here. There are two options to play the game, one with the bright colors and one with a more monochromatic style, because when I was playtesting the game some people actually liked the bright colors and felt that they had a great atmosphere and stood out, but others preferred to have a more subdued monochromatic look. In general, obviously it's not a really pretty game, but that should not be the main reason to play it anyway. It's more about the story and the puzzles, and I'm quite happy how that turned out. For a short game like this, you can play through it in probably 90 minutes. There's quite a lot of variety in the puzzles and locations, and there are no dead ends or overly frustrating puzzles to make for a pleasant experience and not detracting too much from the story. I've put Eternal Pinball RPG on place number 4 because it's one of those games I always come back to. The game was born from the idea of putting RPG mechanics into a pinball simulation game and having a constant progression so you don't start over with every time you start playing the pinball table. So in this game you gather XP, you get loot, distribute skill points and unlock new abilities by playing a pinball table, completing quests or clearing a dungeon. All the power you gain will help you increase your score and climb the online leaderboards. So your character stats have an influence how many points you get in the game, but it's still mostly down to skill, ramping up all those multipliers and achieving as many points as possible within one playthrough. Now the biggest challenge for creating this game was that, well, I played quite a few pinball machines in my life, but I never actually created a pinball table, and as that is core to the experience, because, well, you spend quite a lot on that single table, it had to be a good one. And yes, I'm quite pleased with the result. I mean, it's not the most complex table ever, but it works fine enough. You can really learn how to hit the different targets and get better, and there are many different ways how to play the table to ramp up your score. The game obviously contains a multi-ball, well, I think you need that for any good table, and there's also the dungeon sub-table that you can achieve if you find a key and open the gate and get in there. One thing you should always consider is the health you have, because if you hit the bumpers you're attacking creatures and you can lose health, and if that goes down to 0, well, then you can't use your flippers anymore, but there's a hotkey to use a health potion to regain control of them. So if you enjoy playing pinball and might want to try out something a bit different, I think Eternal Pinball RPG turned out quite nice.
that wasn't the inflection. It was what happened when the doors opened. The beings that landed on our planet told us the truth. I mean, all of us, at once. It was completely unbelievable, and it will be to anyone who hasn't witnessed it. But within the fraction of a second, the secrets of the universe were unveiled, and with them came two gifts that the outsiders had brought us. Almost immediately, humanity forsook their traditional religions. In their stead arose the Church of Flesh, dedicated to the Amesha, and the Church of Neon, which pledged allegiance to the Daiva.
Zarathustra Cybergeddon is my newest game, and it's another point-and-click adventure in a Lovecraftian setting, but this time taking place in a lore-rich cyberpunk world. Now, I had this idea for a world where outside forces changed the course of history dramatically for quite a few years, but I never had the ability to actually realize it in a game. With the constant improvement of AI image generation, I was now finally able to make this world a reality. I don't want to go into the details of morality with AI image generation here, but let's just say I decided to make the game free because I didn't want to profit off other artists' work. If you're open about the tech, there's an intriguing storyline about an FBI agent that has to navigate the political lines between the two churches that rule this world and uncover a secret cult that is trying to destroy it. The game is about 5 hours in playtime and has 3 different endings and features your typical inventory-based puzzles as well as dialogue and logic puzzles. Again, no dead ends here, you will always be able to complete the game at any point. The only thing besides the AI stuff that disappointed a few players, I think, was the lack of social commentary that many people expect from a cyberpunk game, but well, I never set out to do that. It's more about just entertainment and an intriguing, suspenseful storyline. So if you're into the genre and want to learn more about the Church of Flesh and the Church of Neon, then just check it out. It's for free on Steam. You can't really go wrong with it, I think. So I don't have to tell you that I'm a big fan of Tycoon games, especially Roller Coaster Tycoon and the likes. And when I revisited Sid Meier's Sim Golf, I immediately fell in love with the game again. If you haven't watched it yet, I also made a video on that game on this channel. Now, one of the coolest things in Sid Meier's Sim Golf to me was that you can not only design your own courses but even play them. But unfortunately, playing those courses was not really that much fun because, well, there was not a lot of skill involved, as it plays out more like an RPG where your hit chances are randomized. So I had this idea that if you, instead of designing a golf course, which are kind of boring to non-golf players I would say, you had a mini golf course and you can actually play that, wouldn't that be great? After thinking about that concept more and more, it became obvious to me that the biggest challenge from a programming standpoint would be an AI that can play the golf courses that you design, and I definitely wanted to have those courses in 3D, so you have 3D physics enabled, which makes stuff a lot more complicated. After a few weeks, I was able though to set up a prototype as a proof of concept where you could design a simple course with a few obstacles and having an AI that would be able to play through the whole course, at least if that's possible and you didn't create an uncompletable course. And as a really nice bonus for the 3D approach, you can also walk through your park and view it from all angles, which is kind of cool, I think, especially if you can put down a lot of decoration, change the wall and floor textures, change the lighting and so on, and really make the park your own. And from the business simulation side of things, the game is also quite complex, allowing you to adjust ticket prices, and you have all the arcades as well besides the mini golf courses, where you have the arcade prices and you can set how many tickets a player has to turn in to get a prize, and there's always this balancing gameplay where you don't want to spend too much on those prizes yourself but still make your guests happy. Then there are the tournaments where you have to make the press happy and play yourself during the tournament, and that will later unlock new items that you can place in the park or completely new elements for your mini golf course designs. So this game has definitely been my most ambitious so far. Took quite a while to get everything working, but I'm quite happy with the result, and you can really spend a lot of time at it. There's a lot of content, many things that you can unlock. For example, for the food stalls you can unlock pizza ovens or improved staff that you can hire, so there's always something to do here. The only thing that I'm not really happy about is the lack of sound effects, because, well, it's really hard to create a convincing soundscape that doesn't annoy you very fast for such a game. But I'm still considering trying to get that in there in a later update maybe, if I have an idea how to pull this off. So if you enjoy games like Roller Coaster Tycoon, or you're just looking for some cozy casual gameplay to build up your own park of your dreams, then maybe check it out. There's also a free demo available if you're unsure if the game is really up your alley. Its Return to the Desert is my personal favorite amongst my games. It combines genres of adventure games, turn-based tactics and minigames, and I'm really glad how well those work together and create more than just the sum of its parts. The adventure part helps to tell an overarching and engaging story and make your party members come alive. Recruiting new members and buying equipment for them directly ties into the combat, and the outcome of the combat then advances the story. There is no permadeath in the game. The only game over you see is when you didn't defeat the giant mutated ants in time. But there are also different difficulty levels, and you can even disable the time limit completely if you just want to experience the story. So some of you retro gaming enthusiasts might have spotted the similarities to a much older game. It came from the desert that was mainly famous on the Amiga, and yes, that had been a major inspiration for this spiritual successor. I really loved the atmosphere and the setting of the original game and wanted to preserve that, but what I wasn't so keen on was the more trial and error gameplay of the original, where you had to go to the correct locations at the correct time, and there were many options to just screw yourself over without even knowing. Also, the combat felt a bit simplistic, so I saw an opportunity here to make it more strategic and tie it deeper into the overall gameplay instead of just having this disconnected minigame. So It Return to the Desert turned out to be a much more approachable game than the original, but still faithful to the core ideas. The game also comes with an extensive 40 pages colored manual to tickle those nostalgia senses, and I even designed and produced an actual game box for a very limited physical release. The story of the game is quite simple. You're a geologist that is called into a little town to examine a meteor, and before you know it, these mutated ants show up and start attacking, and you have to rally a party because the authorities won't believe you, so you take matters in your own hands. The main focus of the game was its atmosphere of this small town and all the quirky characters in this typical 50s B-movie horror flick kind of way, while the ants become more and more powerful, posing an actual threat, ramping up the suspense until the final confrontation. Oh, and there are still minigames though. From escaping a hospital to flying a plane, you get quite some variety to mix things up. The combat is also on the more simplistic side of things, but it has this unique feature where ants can't see you, but they just smell you, and your characters will leave behind those clouds, which will inform the ants of your location. This is not XCOM 3, but with the different weapons and the ability to target individual parts of the bigger ants, it provides enough depth to create some nail-biting encounters. So these have been the top 10 games I created myself and released on Steam. I hope you found the video interesting and maybe also a few of the games. I'm always very happy about open feedback, so if you did try out one of the games, please let me know or just write a review on Steam if you're at it. If you do care for a little brain teaser, 5 of the 10 games we talked about today are actually taking place in the same universe, and there are lots of secrets well hidden in those games that will give you enough information to find out about the greater story that connects all these games. If you're interested about my future games or maybe want to discuss the current ones, you can always join my Discord. I will provide a link in the description of the video below. And with that, thanks for watching and keep on playing. See ya!